Well, this week we start to notice a pattern. Right when God shows up powerfully in Abraham's life, it seems the very next scene is him failing miserably. And he holds true to that pattern today. We're jumping into chapter 16 of Genesis. Genesis 16, 1 through 6. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, had borne him no children. She had a female Egyptian servant whose name was Hagar. And Sarai said to Abram, "Behold now, the Lord has prevented me from bearing children. Go into my servant. It may be that I shall obtain children by her." And Abram listened to the voice of Sarai. So after Abram had lived 10 years in the land of Canaan, Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar, the Egyptian, her servant, and gave her to Abram, her husband, as a wife. And he went in to Hagar, and she conceived. And when she saw that she had conceived, she looked with contempt on her mistress. And Sarai said to Abram, "May the wrong done to me be on you. I gave my servant to your embrace, and when she saw that she had conceived, she looked on me with contempt. May the Lord judge between you and me." But Abram said to Sarai, "Behold, your servant is in your power. Do to her as you please." Then Sarai dealt harshly with her, and she fled from her. There's so much going on in this scene. So right after, this is chapter 16, God's just promised Abraham with that great cutting of the covenant scene. It was by faith alone that he was counted as faithful to the covenant. Right at the moment where Abraham would have pledged his life if he broke the covenant, God walked through the split animals. He said, "You're not going to do any of this. I'm going to do this." And then Abram and Sarai take matters into their own hands. And there's so many just important hyperlinks to point out here. One, the fact that the text keeps emphasizing that she's Egyptian. And we who already know the future of this story, and anyone reading this would have known the story, but the fact that Abraham's descendants are going to be enslaved by Egypt. And here, at the beginning of this story, Abraham and Sarah are oppressing an Egyptian slave. It's like a reversal of fortunes here. Actually, back in chapter 15, God made this promise that the people would be dealt with harshly for 400 years in a land not their own. And it was the same verb here. They're going to be treated harshly there. And now Sarah is treating this Egyptian harshly. It's this big reversal. Some key words that should take us all the way back to the beginning. If you remember the story in Genesis 3 with the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Eve was tempted by the snake, and she saw that it was good. She gave to her husband. Right? There's all these words take us back here. All of a sudden we realize, Abraham and Sarah are at their own tree moment. Their own tree moment. It wasn't something that just happened to the original man and woman. It's happening now to the people that God has chosen to be his instrument in the world. We're supposed to see them as standing before the tree of good and evil, wondering how are they going to go? Are they going to choose the will of the Lord? Or are they going to choose to take matters into their own hands? And so here you have, where's all that? So they saw, right here, gave to Abram, her husband. She saw, right? And there's all these images here. The same kind of words are popping up all over the place. And it's a little different. It doesn't look exactly the same, but I think we're supposed to see that and say, Abram and Sarah, they're at their own tree of knowledge moment. How are they going to choose? And sadly, they're choosing to oppress their Egyptian slave, to use her. And then there's some strife that happens because of it. Strife rises up between Hagar and Sarah, and it causes this moment. Sarah then banishes Hagar into the wilderness. We're not getting here, but go back, read through the rest of chapter 16. This is the first time we see the angel of the Lord, this really important figure that keeps popping up. And the first time the angel of the Lord comes is to comfort the slave girl, Hagar, this Egyptian. It's really fascinating to think that this is the angel of the Lord that will later come to Moses and keep showing up in Israel's life. And the first time he shows up is with this Egyptian who had been oppressed. So there's a lot of just incredible reversals of fortune and things like that. But just wanted to look at this. What we're seeing the kind of people that God chose to use as his instrument. They're not anything that special. Right after this incredible moment where God shows up in Abraham's life, he's taking matters into his own hands and trying to do it his own way. Out of this will come Ishmael, who will actually create some more strife and tension in the story as we keep going on. So what is this like for us? I think, one, it points us back to the incredible character of God, his mercy in choosing someone who definitely doesn't deserve it, which should give us hope. Right? We are just like Abraham and Sarah. And how many times have we been in our own kind of tree of the knowledge of good and evil moment, seeing something that looks good in our own eyes and taking that path instead of the path that God laid out for us? We kind of looked at that throughout. Which path are we about to take? Are we going to trust in our own eyes and our own desires, or are we going to trust in the Lord? And right here, they don't fare very well. But that's just this part of the story. So maybe for this week, we can step back and reflect on the way that Abraham and Sarah kind of had their own tree of the knowledge of good and evil moment. That was a choice that the first humans, Adam and Eve, had, but every human since has had the same choice. Am I going to go this path and trust in the Lord and lean on his wisdom, or am I going to do what looks right in my own eyes? And all of those hyperlinks take us back to that moment. And so just as Abraham and Sarah, right after they get this incredible calling from God to be his chosen people, it seems that they're failing miserably. They're taking matters into their own hands, and it's going to cause some tension and strife later on. Maybe stop and just reflect in your own life right now, today, this week. Where is your tree moment? Are you at a crossroads in any kind of decision, in any action, in any relationship this week where you're tempted to do what feels good in your own eyes, but God is actually calling you to pursue his wisdom, his grace, his truth? And what does that look like? How do you hold that intention? Maybe hold that in prayer to say, God, give me the strength and the wisdom and the courage to choose your way and not my way.